Did I show you this? This is my Barack the Barbarian comic book. Did I show you that? Barack the Barbarian, the search for stimulus. I love the chick grabbing onto his leg. Doesn't look much like Hillary Clinton, though, don't you think? What do you think? No? Hillary in a bikini? No? Anybody? All right, so. Anybody know Stacy Breeze? Yeah. Stacy Breeze? Did you see Stacy Breeze has her own comic book? Look, Stacy Breeze's comic book, Power Girl, right there. See? Stacy Breeze, right. She's going to hate my guts now. Okay, so I actually bought a whole bunch of these for her because I thought they were fun. All right. Seems subdued. Is the weather getting to you? Is it cold? You okay? Come on, it makes you want to find somebody to snuggle up to, right? Makes you want to find a girl in a fuzzy sweater. You know who you are. All right. Okay, all right. So the orgasm panel was right before me. Yeah. Anybody got some Lysol? All right, here we go. Orgasm panel. Yeah, I thought I heard somebody going, oh, 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 oh. I'll have what she's having. I got chairs right here. Anybody want to sit? Anybody? Chair right there. Which microphone works? Testing 1, 2. Rope. Nope. Okay, yeah, but it's not enough rope here. So here we go. Testing 1, 2. Testing. Enough rope to hang myself. All right, let me know when you guys are ready. You guys, those guys. Ready. You ready? How are you? Good to see you. Okay, ready? And a one. What's today? Today is October 17th, 2009. I am Sean David Morton. Fight on. Go USC. Beat the Irish. Beat Notre Dame. So I want to say hi to all those folks out there. I know Pete Carroll's going to get the tape. So you guys, you didn't get a chance to meet him. Did you guys see my buddy Mark Sanchez earlier? Anybody? He stopped by to say hi. So anyway, Mark Sanchez says hi. He says thanks and wants to say hello to all you folks. So Mark and I were friends at USC and managed to did some healings on him at USC. You wonder why his knee's so good? You wonder why his throwing hand is so good? You wonder why he's winning stuff for the Jets? There we go. Any Jets fans? Anybody? You know how the Jets and women are different? Because you know at the end of the day you're going to get screwed by the Jets. Ha ha ha. Sorry. Anyway,
he didn't look too good last night.
All right, no, he was a little confused. So he'll be better. He'll be better tomorrow. So you guys will be all fine. All right, let's open this up with what are we talking about? Today's talk is going to be a little bit about the avatar trigger, and which was the point of the lecture. And let me every time I come up here, I try to think to myself, how does my higher guidance and how do whatever angelic force that occasionally uses me as its hand puppet, which is very uncomfortable, what does it want me to tell you? What do you most need to know? I've got a brain that's full of a lot of really useless information, as a lot of you people probably know from listening to me blather on about whatever else is out there. Obviously, people are concerned about the economy. You guys are concerned about the economic factors. A lot of people are concerned about the socialization of government. I did have one interesting thing that I wanted to read you, if you will indulge me. 1 second here. I've read this before, and I want to read it again because prophecy is always really kind of cool the second or third time around. And I bring this book with me. I'll show you some of my Bibles here. There's 3 books that you guys need to get, which I think are probably the best books out there if you want to figure some things out. If you really want to get the idea of this, if you really want a syllabus of where things are going, the first book, which I do not have with me, is called The Great Pyramid Decoded by Peter Lemercier. And Peter Lemercier originally wrote this book back in 1975. He did another edition of this book in I think it was 2000, 2001 or so. And The Great Pyramid Decoded, one of the great works. I'm not sure Peter's done anything else after that. He did a book on Nostradamus that was terrible. But his seminal work is The Great Pyramid Decoded. The other book that I think is fantastic is a book called The Mayan Calendar and the Transformation of Consciousness. I'll hold this up to the light for you. I think it's on sale in the bookstore. If not, it's on sale at any Barnes & Noble. This is Dr. Carl Johan Kalaman. And Carl Johan Kalaman is a Swedish scientist who now lives in Seattle, oddly enough. And he's written 2 books. His first book was actually just called The Mayan Calendar, Solving the Greatest Mystery of Our Time. This one, very small print, very dense, a little hard to get through. This one, much better because it has a lot of charts and a lot of graphs and shows you in very specific detail a series of prophecies and kind of a time code plan that talks about the evolution of human DNA over the course of approximately 16.4 billion years of galactic evolution, of which the 16.4 billion year period is about ready to come to a 240-day cyclical fruition, approximately at the end of 2011 and 2012. Enough responsibility for you guys? And the last one, which is really interesting if you're interested in astrology, because what is prophecy and prediction? Prophecy and prediction means not only having the psychic juice to be able to see around a couple of corners and be able to make some predictions, but also the idea of understanding how cycles and patterns work and operate. Because, prophets in the Old Testament, very few people, very, very rarely does the king of Babylon come to Daniel and say, Daniel, tell me how my stock portfolio is doing. What's the price of gold going to be today? You have any predictions on the Forex market? And Daniel said, oh, and lo, Yahweh said to me, thou shalt sell the dollar. And so it's very rare that you have these prophets who say these kind of things. But if you look at Daniel, and you look at Isaiah, and you look at Micah, and you look at the book of Joel, and you look at all of these books of the prophets, what is it they do? What they do is, if you understand the Old Testament, what the Old Testament does is it lays out, here you have an evolution creation story at the beginning, which is kind of a metaphor for 7 ages of evolution, or 7. And by the way, it does not say the light and the day were the first day. It actually says, and the light and the day were the beginning and end of the first age. So it actually says age in the original Hebrew. But the idea about this is that it lays out a series of laws and codes. And what it says is that it shows the Hebrews, in that particular case, which later became known as the Jews, because the tribe of Judah was only one tribe of the tribes of Israel, of the 12, and then the 13th tribe, actually, which is kind of an artificial tribe made up of the eldest sons. But what it was a code of law. It was a rule book for successful living. How do you possess the gates of your enemies? It's got health codes, it's got sexual codes, it's got religious codes, and it's got monetary codes as well, which show you how to have a successful society. The rest of the book, in essence, is when the children of Israel obey the laws, they're mighty, they're powerful, they possess the gates of their enemies. And when they disobey the laws, they are summarily raped and enslaved. The rest of it is a series of dreams, contacts with extraterrestrials, whatever else. The rest of it's basically the Weekly World News, mostly, but it put in Bible form, which is kind of interesting. You see Bat Boy, I think, somewhere in Isaiah. But anyway. This book by Dane Rudyard is called An Astrological Mandala, The Cycle of Transformations and Its 360 Symbolic Phases. What he does, this is for the billions of you on the internet. So for the billions of you, I'd like to say hello, welcome, bienvenue. And if you're seeing this in the future, I'd like to say Hongkaji, my Chinese masters. All right, so here's what's interesting. This is for you, Wong Fu, by the way. It's called An Astrological Mandala by Dane Rudyard. This is called Sabian symbolism. And Sabian, how many people know about this? Anybody, astrologers in here? Here's what's really cool. Look at the degree which you were born. Like, for example, I'm October 1st, so I think I was like 10 degrees Libra or something like that. But look up the degree of your sun, and it's got some very interesting things to say. So this is what I think is the most interesting. If you look at Barack Obama, and this is why I wanted to reiterate this particular thing, because it really does predict the future. And while I'm finding this, the Sabian symbol for the Bush administration, which I think was very interesting, and I'll just paraphrase it. Hopefully I can see it. I'm getting to be old here. I had these pinhole glasses, and I lost one of the lenses out of them. So, maybe, okay, here it is. All right, there were two. This is interesting. The Bush administration specifically had a Sabian symbol that basically said a small elite occult group of men form a star chamber which decides matters of war and world events. Does that sound like the Bush administration to you? And I remember reading that before George Bush was actually elected and telling you that this was going to be this small cabal that was going to make all these kind of, top secret sort of information. Now, this is where it gets a little weird, or weirder, should I say. If you're actually looking at the 30th degree of Capricorn for this, the original, Barack Obama had 2 inaugurations, yes? I mean, I predicted it. I told you it was going to happen, and then it happened. They goofed up the oath. It was so funny because a friend of mine was standing at the Capitol Rotunda on the corner, and you can hear him. I heard him on the TV because the minute he goes, and United, and they goof it up, you hear this guy go, in the background. This was a friend of mine who calls me on the phone going, I can't believe you were right about this. I'm standing here, and you told me they were going to goof it up. And the Secret Service is like, tell him to shut up. He goes, go away. My friend predicted this was going to happen. He's on the phone from the Capitol Rotunda, calling me on the phone saying, I can't believe you predicted this, and you were totally right. And I was like, well, I told you. Because, again, I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry?
That doesn't speak too highly of Harvard law.
Yeah, I was going to say. So here's the interesting part about it here is that, okay, his first inauguration, I don't want to make too much of a point about this, but this is really interesting. I just read this today, and I thought you would find this. Am I boring you guys with this stuff? No. All right, because this really shows what's going on. His first inauguration was interesting because if you look at the Aquarius at 1 degree, the Sabian symbol for Aquarius at 1 degree is an old Adobe mission in California. Now, the unusual thing about that is that what it basically means is that when he first spoke to the Senate, I think it's very interesting because they gave him a painting of a mission in California. I'm not sure if you saw that with Dianne Feinstein, but they actually gave him a painting of a mission in California which represented the Sabian symbol. These guys know this stuff, I'm telling you, which represented the Sabian symbol of his first inauguration. The interesting part about this is that when he goofs up the oath, number one, doesn't officially make him the President of the United States at that time. Remember, there was a lot of controversy about whether or not Obama was born in Kenya or whatever else, whether he's a citizen. Doesn't matter. Bottom line is he's head of the corporation. He's head of the CEO of the United States, which means that there are no citizenship requirements to be head of the company, which is the United States of America Incorporated. And I could go off into a whole big diatribe that no president ever in history, including George Washington, has actually taken an oath to the United States of America. They've taken oath to the United States. Notice the difference? There's a difference between capital the, small u, capital S, states, and the United States, because the United States comes under what's called USC, which is United States codes. So this is what's interesting about it. The Spanish mission was basically that it was the development of land, that the Spanish mission represents that there was a spiritual aspect. It built something. It was civilizing. It was going to bring peace to politics. All that stuff went out the window because then he then takes the second inaugural oath. He takes it in the map room of the White House. He takes it in front of a painting of a man named Carl Latrobe, who is a master mason whose students then laid out and actually designed Washington, D.C. Also, he took it at 7:33 p.m., which is 1933 military time. Barack Obama was also raised at the 1933rd parallel in Kona, Hawaii. So all these Masonic things are all directly connecting to it. But let me tell you, this is what's really weird. This is for the second inauguration. The moon had actually moved to 2 degrees in Aquarius. And now you have the history. You want to know what his presidency is going to be like now? Now you have the history of his presidency, which is going to be an unexpected thunderstorm. Keynote, the need to develop the inner security which will enable us to meet unexpected crisis. And what it says is an interesting connection can be made between the symbols of Taurus, blah, 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 blah. Warning a square. In the first case, we deal with energies or activities that can be related to the natural development of the individual. What is the biggest thing that's happening right now? It's the war between what? The rights of the individual and the socialist collective, yes? So this basically talks about that a lot of his presidency is going to be a war between how much socialism we can stand as opposed to the freedom of individuals within society, yes? The rest of it is, but here we are primarily concerned with social, collective processes, exactly what we're concerned with now, how much power should we give the government, function of and the function of the individual within them. Does that make sense? So therefore, where do people come into this? Where do people come into healthcare? Where do people come into the government having more power? Where do people come into this? And where do the rights of the individual come into? I mean, turn on the news and you'll see it every day. The symbol itself, an unexpected thunderstorm, could be given a very positive meaning in an arid environment, but the emphasis of an unexpected tends to accent a sudden and dangerous character of this event. Such a thunderstorm in a region of dry hills, which is exactly what's happening in California right now, creates a devastating flood. At any rate, it refers to an event for which one is not prepared, a menace to the works of man. Second in the stage symbol, time, da-da-da-da-da. It also says, dust you were, dust you shall become. Under a downpour of rain, adobe and brick can return to mud. All human institutions and achievements can be washed away, even in the day of their greatest glory. Dust you were, dust you must become. This is the challenge of nature. Well, what's the biggest thing that's been happening? Storms, water. It's just weird, because I read this before he became president, and then I think I read this in when I was here in March. I think I talked about the same thing, saying that, look for the storms, look for tsunamis, look for water warnings. It's also really weird because if you connect it to the Egyptian pyramids has an area which is a siege perilous called the pit. And if you go underneath to the bottom, you have an initiate who crawls along the floor, and the pyramid is measured out in pyramid inches that represent years. And as you crawl along the floor, you stand up at the pit in the bottom room, approximately the year 1900 or so. And then as you stand up from crawling down, you walk forward, and the initiate was usually naked and in the dark as you were going through the pyramid. And as you're walking along the floor, along the wall, you then have a hole that, if you're not aware, you could fall into the hole. The edge of that hole is between approximately 2004 and 2005, representing that there would be a series of water or hurricane-related catastrophes that would begin an economic downfall of mankind. It's also interesting because the pit is actually, it doesn't go straight down. It actually goes kind of bump, 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 bump. It actually has a series of ledges. So as you fall into it, it's about 60 feet deep. It represents that mankind doesn't fall into this hole all at once. But what it does represent is that if you're aware, you can turn right or up or towards God or towards the Creator, if you will, walk along the side of the pit, then turn, and the minute you get to the center of the pit, you think, oh, I'm just fine, everything's great, I've managed to get through it all. But right at the center of the pit, there's a trough that looks very much like this, right along the edge of the wall, which actually comes down, which is called the River of Fire. So some great cosmic event which occurs between 2012 and approximately 2014 then washes the rest of everybody into the pit. The question is, who's in the pit? The question is it the people that are tied to materialism? Is it the people who are in the third, fourth, and fifth worlds, if you will, that are going to be affected by shortages of oil or shortages by food or whatever? I mean, there were like 7 million people starving to death because oil was $142 a barrel because they couldn't get food to certain locations on the planet. So it's interesting that if you look at that, and you look at that Sabian symbol as representative, and then you look at, we've had nothing but storms on the West Coast since then. In Los Angeles and California, I live in northern Tijuana. We used to call it L.A., but it's just north. They should just move the wall because where I'm at. It's just, the mayor's riding a burro with stripes on it, with a big sombrero. And it's like, hey, how are you? Welcome to northern Tijuana. And but we have 4 seasons in Southern California. We have fire season, flood season, earthquake season, and riot season. Now, those are our 4 seasons. So we had the riots with Proposition 8, and then, the Lakers won the championship. So that was our first riot. And then you had a series of earthquakes that actually happened around my home. They actually put up for the first time a sign which really blew me away. Back in 1994, what I had spoken of is that the quake that would take out Southern California was called the Hermosa quake, which happens to be right where I live. And there's a fault line right out in the ocean, which I always meditate on and always focus on and try to send some love and affection to whenever I can. But that there would be a great tower that would be built in Southern California that would actually have an angel with a flaming sword on the top of the tower. And this would be just to the west of downtown Los Angeles. And that whenever this great quake was, and it looks like it's getting further out somewhere around the year 2016 or so, whenever this great quake was, that the quake would actually happen in the Santa Monica Bay and create some kind of wave that would then create a tsunami-like condition that would then take out a big chunk of California. Right outside my house, literally, I came out in my front room, looked out my window onto the street, and there's a guy in a cherry picker truck out there putting up a sign on the lamppost that says "Tsunami Evacuation Route" right out in front of my house. And okay, we don't have tsunamis in Southern California. Then what's weird is that I had this weird attack about a week or 10 days ago where I was just kind of, it felt like all the brains were being sucked out of the left-hand side of my head. I got dizzy. I started spinning. I got vertigo. It literally felt like my brain separated in two sections. And I'm laying on the floor sort of staring at the ceiling just in this vertigo-like state. And I realized this was one of these great tremors in the force. And then the next day was when the earthquake in Samoa occurred. And for the first time, we had a tsunami warning in Southern California. The day I left on Thursday, we had one of the largest earthquake warnings that we've had. So what do they know? How does this all link into this? What are the patterns? What do you guys need to know? What can I tell you that can let you know about... Hold on one second. I'll take questions at the end. Believe me, you do not want to derail this train of thought. It will not be happy. What do you need to know most? I'm trying to... You guys are... Because here's what I think here's what I prophesy. Let me make a prophecy here. And what I prophesy of what's going on is that, in essence, they know that a change is coming. They know, we all talk about 2012. The trick is, how do you manage beyond the crisis? Understand what I'm saying? Because all the world leaders know that something big is going to happen in the 2012 to approximately all the way out to the 2018 timeframe. Is it war with the Chinese? Is it global economic collapse? Is it the planet tipping over? Is it a series of earthquakes and tsunamis and hurricanes and whatever? The trick is, they know there's going to be a fire in the movie theater. Therefore, you have to figure out, what do we build at the exits? There's in political science, it's what they call the Helgian model. And the Helgian model is that you have a mechanism, you have an organism, if you will, and you apply pressure from the right and pressure from the left to get the organism to do something in the middle, to sort of squirt out the top, if you will. So one of the things you're going to see, and I'll talk about this in the workshop. And again, please come to the workshop. Thank you. I'll pitch the workshop. I'm not selling you anything. I'm not selling you a book. I'm not selling you a paper. I'm not even selling you so much the newsletter. Just come to the workshop and come hang out and come have fun and ask some questions. I've got a thing going on Monday where I'm going to do wing activations. How many people have gotten wings in here? Is that like the coolest thing ever, your wings? You guys? Because on Monday, I'm going to give the workshop where we're going to do some past life stuff with you guys. I'll do what we call the Tibetan whip, which is we'll heal some of the past life things going on. I will do everybody's wings in the class. It's really cool. How many people got the wings in the class last time? Is it fun? Is it great? Once you get this wing energy, because where you're going to is you're evolving from a 3-chakra system to a 7-chakra system to what I think is a 12-chakra system. And I very, very much think that people who have apparitions of angelic entities, I think somehow it's us in the future coming back to help us in the past. That's what we become. That's what we look like with all 12 cylinders of the Austin Martin all kind of functioning. And the idea is that, you're amazing race cars and somebody's all poured sugar in your gas tank. And you're just kind of like, boo, 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 and you're running off like 3 cylinders and you can feel it, can't you? So, again, what are the mechanisms that they're going to use to control you? They know that this amazing thing is coming. We know that the Mayan calendar is ending. We know that with the Mayan calendar ending, that we view time in a different way. And what would make us view time in a different way? Telecommunications, the internet, cell phones, texting. I think, I'm texting on my phone thinking, wow, if only someone created a device that we could actually use to speak to each other through these. Wouldn't it be great that I wouldn't have to... And it's great for girls because they flip the screen up and they've got the typing thing, that goes like this. I've got like one button that has like 3 letters on each side, and it's like, well, I just think that you should. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, come there. And it's like I'm a pretty good speaker and all that, but I am completely retarded. If you ever get a text message from me, it's all spelled wrong and it's all different, and it's very sad. But telecommunications have brought us closer together. It's changed our nature of time. We have a different view of time and space. We've developed, and once again, this is the Mayan calendar. The Mayan calendar, if you look at the Temple of Chichen Itza, has a series of different levels. It has these 9 levels to it. And it talks about how we develop. And over a course of 16.4 billion years, this 16.4 billion year development is God, big God, the generator, operator, destroyer, that creates all of us, or that we are all part of, because I'm not a person that believes in past lives. I think that you have past aspects, that we live one life all the way through, all of you, because by my telling you have a past life means that I'm empowering the concept of death, doesn't it? That you somehow die, and none of you do. You have very pretty costumes and very pretty masks on this time around, and you will change them just like actors do for whatever your next aspect is going to be. How many grooves on a record? One. And there's different songs, and they play different tempos and whatever else, but the groove goes all the way around, and there's a little space in between each one of the songs, which is the space in between your different aspects. So we begin with God in eternity, we end with God in eternity, and we're all out having little adventures, and the 11th commandment should be, thou shalt not bore God. That's the bottom line. Don't bore God. I don't care if you're a jerk. I don't care if you're Mother Teresa. Just, for God's sakes, don't be boring, all right? Because you know what? You do have guardian angels, but, guardian angels have to really protect people that, skydive or jump out of buildings or do whatever. Sitting in an office, guardian angel kind of sits around and goes, And what happens is if you're leading a boring life, your guardian angel gets bad habits and becomes French somehow. I don't know. I'm going to smoke now because there's nothing to do. And the more people use your angelic entities, again, I say that it's like having a dog. And if you have angelic entities, what's the dog want you to do? The dog wants you to throw the ball. And once you have the ball, that becomes the be-all and the end-all. You guys have had golden retrievers. The be-all and the end-all at dog's existence is to wait for you to throw the ball, right? Throw the ball. And so you put your power and your intention and your energy into that ball. You throw it, and what becomes the sole purpose of that animal's life for that period of time? Get the ball, right? It doesn't matter if it goes in a pool. It doesn't matter if it goes up the tree. That dog could get that ball. And what's he do once he gets the ball? Theoretically, he brings it back to you. Okay, it's a whole different thing. It's one thing to get the dog to chase the ball, another thing to get the dog to pick up the ball, another thing to get him to bring it back, and a whole other thing to give him to give it back to you once you actually get him. Because you have dogs like that, and they don't want them. They want to give it back to you. Guardian angels are kind of the same way. You've got to use them. You've got to use what you have, which means you have to focus. You have to focus your intention, and you have to put out there, what you want on a daily basis. So therefore, not boring God is the biggest thing I have to tell you. Be interesting, and the people that will survive are the people that are curious. The people that stretch the envelope, or the people that are into unusual things. If you look at this expo, and I've been doing this expo now, it's 2009. Oh, my Lord, I've been doing this expo, I think, for 17 years, 15 to 17 years. Yeah, I know, and I'm 87 years old. Don't I look great? But for the time that I've been doing this expo, and the things that we've talked about, and the things that we've dealt with, and all the stuff that we've shared sort of throughout the years of all this stuff, and one of the things I've seen is that the fantastic thing about this is all you folks are curious. You're on the cutting edge. You want to know what the next new thing is. And look at how much, I still remember seeing fundamentalist born-again preachers on the TV. I don't know if you remember this. And they're saying, how the devil gets in the New Age people. The devil gets into you through the yoga. Because when you do the yoga, you're stretching. And when you stretch the parts of your body and you're bending over, the devil just takes you right from behind. He does. The devil will get you through the yoga. It's the yoga where the devil comes in. They're worshiping the Hindu Krishna and the Saraswati, and pretty soon they're not eating meat and they're worshiping cows as something holy. It's the yoga, my friends, is how the devil gets into you. Look at all the New Age people, and they got Satan living in them. Satan living in them. Well, I tell you, maybe that's why they invented Bikram yoga, to burn the devil out of you or something. I don't know. It's like, now let's do yoga in a place that smells like a hot sweat sock. Yeah, that's great. So, but look at how much things have changed. Now we have yoga at churches as an example. We have health foods going on. We have all the things that you guys know. And this is what's been so great. In the one hand, the tragedy of the internet has been that, with the exception of it's being taken over by a bunch of booger-eating 12-year-olds living in grandpa's basement somewhere, but, or Wikipedia entries that are always wrong. The tragedy of the internet has been is that it's divided us. It's sort of a divide and conquer sort of thing. It's disseminated massive amounts of information, but the great thing is that it's sort of divided us where you don't need to go out and see teachers and masters and have the face-to-face experience when you figure, I can pull them up on YouTube. A little different, okay? A little different, seeing me, saying hi, and say, maybe YouTube's maybe better, I don't know. But it's good that you people come out because, again, you're curious, and it's going to be about forming community, and it's about forming people that are, because in the end, they will throw gold and silver in the street. In the end, it's all about what you know and who you know. That's going to be it. It's going to be what you know, what your knowledge base is, and who you know as far as your friends, as far as your family, as far as how you survive. You with me on this? Can I get a hallelujah? Okay, there you go. So, the idea behind this is, because it's the yoga that gets into you. So what do you guys most need to know? And I'm trying to impart, I'll give you some previews of what we're going to talk about in the workshop. I will tell you a lot about the stock market stuff. I will tell you a lot about where the dollar is going to go. We will talk about, but I'd like to be able to do some more experiential things. So if you come to the workshop later on this afternoon, we will do some meditation stuff, and we'll try to maybe open some heart chakras, and I'll do some physical work with you guys to figure out what's going on with you. But I like it because I have a room full of people here, and you guys go out and disseminate information and what's happening. The economic thing, briefly. Give me 5 minutes, and I know you're just burning with a question. All right, okay. What's your question? What about New York City? Well, there's good news and bad news about New York City. Here's going to be your challenge with what's going to happen as far as your economics. The dollar is basically going to tank. You guys know this. I've been saying this for 3 years. I don't know how else other to say it. I've seen 3 different scenarios of what's going to go on with the dollar and with the economy. And this is what's interesting. I was in Amsterdam in 2005 working on a business deal, some financing for a film project. I knew some guys that owned a bank that actually was out by the airport where they have these huge warehouses at the airport in Amsterdam. And they took me in a bank vault where they showed me, and this was 2005 again, they showed me cases and cases and cases, a whole vault full of $100 bills, brand new. 100. You have not seen them yet, by the way. They have not released them in the United States, but they've been printed. They're ready to go. They had a reddish tinge to them. They call them redbacks outside the United States because they're kind of pink looking. They have nanotechnology, kind of sparkling glitters in them. They've got a pop-up face of Benjamin Franklin as kind of a hologram on the front. And the idea behind this is that I said, what's all this for? And they said, well, they're going to tank your currency. This is April of 2005. I said it on the radio. I wrote newsletter articles about it. They said the United States is about ready to become Japan. And what they're going to do is they're going to hyperinflate the currency, possibly steal trillions of dollars, which is exactly what happened. They're going to hyperinflate the currency, and then they're going to go possibly, and this is a contingency plan, to a 2-tiered currency system. One currency for outside the United States, which means that whenever you go anywhere, you'll either have to use a credit or debit card or change money at the water's edge. You notice you can only take, I think, now it used to be able to take $20,000. Now it's only $10,000. Now they're talking about only being able to take $5,000 cash outside the country. Because what they'll do is that what the Japanese did, in Japan what happened was the Japanese deregulated their banking system. Sound familiar? They deregulated their banking system. The Japanese Yakuza, which is the crime syndicate there, pulled about $4 trillion out of the Japanese economy and basically just stole it. And they went to a 2-tiered system. They went to the foreign yen, which they stabilized for their trade exports. Excuse me. And they went to a domestic yen, which was they went to a domestic yen, which then they hyperinflated the snot out of, and Japanese people were finding that they were paying a huge amount of money for rice. You're seeing the stock market go up. For example, one of the predictions I made in June and all the way back in March, if you guys saw me, was I told you right about this time the stock market would be at 10,000. See where we're at? It's at 10,000. I told you gold would be over $1,000. See where it's at? It's over $1,000. Does this mean I'm some amazing psychic? No. Does this mean the market's really going up or the value of gold is going up? No. You know what it means? It means the dollar's going down. That's what it means. And if you look at what they did to the Soviet Union went into Afghanistan, which they call the graveyard of empires. I mean, it destroyed the British Empire, it destroyed the Soviet Empire, and it's about ready to destroy the American Empire. The Soviet Union went into Afghanistan in 1980, and 9 years later the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviets were completely broke. When did the United States go into Afghanistan? 2001. It's 9 years later into 2010. And what was the very last thing that we did to the Russians to collapse the Soviet Empire? We flooded their economy with counterfeit rubles, basically is what we did. So we made them choke on their own money. We made their bond market completely useless. We inflated their currency. And in the beginning of, it was about 19 days before the Berlin Wall fell. The Russians came for a loan to the Western European banks, and their credit rating had gone from AAA to 4F. And they didn't loan them any money. And 19 days later, the Berlin Wall fell. And it gives you an idea of what's about ready to happen to the United States. But it's going to be a much longer. I mean, the United States is just a bigger giant, so it's going to take longer for the giant to go, oh, as the giant begins to fall. But it's the death of 1,000 cuts. And what they're doing is that Obama's ready to go to war in Afghanistan in a massive way. They're talking about 40,000 troops, another 60,000 troops on top of that. 2 days into his presidency, he attacked Pakistan. He was only president for 13, 14 days, and they nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, even Obama was embarrassed by that. Even Obama was like, "Well, I don't know what to do with this because if I win it, I'll give it to the military or something." So. Or they had did you guys see the Saturday Night Live skit they did? But they have that brilliant guy who does the Obama imitation. And he says, people on the right say that I'm doing a lot of crazy right-wing socialist things. They say I'm instituting a health care plan. Haven't done that. They say I'm pulling troops out of Iraq. Haven't done that. Say I'm getting people out of Afghanistan. Haven't done that either. I don't know what these people are thinking. I haven't done a single thing I said I was going to do. Why are they saying I'm some radical socialist? And very, very funny skit on Saturday Night Live. And to show you that it basically what you're getting is George Bush 2.0, kind of. It's George Bush badder and blacker, and it's because it's not changing. It's not. Is it changing? Seriously, is it changing? Basically, you have George Bush who engineers the greatest bank robbery in American history, and you got Barack Obama driving, in essence, the getaway car in this whole thing. And, covering up for all these guys. Do you see Dick Cheney being up on charges for anything, or George Bush for war crime? No. You see the Democrats just, twiddling their thumbs, doing whatever it's going to do. Again, Socialist Party A, Socialist Party B, it's all the corporatocracy. They're turning it into a gigantic corporation where you are all chattel. You are human resources. And we used to call that something different in America. Human resources, we used to call slavery in America. And it's the same kind of thing. And that's, in essence, what they're doing to you now. So the essence of what's going on is that when they inflate the currency, like they did with Japan, and I saw this, the other possibility here, and let me put a couple of things to rest, is something called the Amero. Have you guys seen the Amero? It's not going to happen. It's one of those other contingency plans where they've got a bunch of these things printed up in Denver somewhere, and they were talking about if they can actually get the U.S. dollar down low enough so it's around in the range of being worth, say, 2 to maybe 3 pesos or so, and get it somehow level with the Mexican economy and then the Canadian economy. You could comfortably merge these things together. But the bottom line is that the average American on the street is not going to trade, is not going to buy stuff in Ameros. It's just not going to happen. So what they're doing with the Federal Reserve note is they're just printing trillions of them. They started this in 2006, where they took the Federal Reserve note off the M3 index, which means they wouldn't even tell you how many dollars were actually being printed. And they're about ready to choke all of you on your own money. And what's happening is that as far as, and I'll talk a little bit about this in the workshop as we go forward, but you're going to see savage attacks. I'll just tell you the pattern for the next year. You're going to see these savage attacks on Barack Obama coming from the right with the Glenn Becks and the Rush Limbaughs and all these people, because now what the liberal media is doing is that they're focusing on the right wing to basically just beat the snot out of Obama to the point of where you're all going to feel sorry for him right around Christmas. Something's going to happen Christmas time. There's going to be some kind of messianic kind of miracle. I don't know if Michelle gets pregnant or something Christ-like is going to happen. There's some big plan for something that's going to happen the week right after Christmas. Then the stimulus money, all these trillions of dollars of stimulus money that they're talking about, they've only spent 10% of it, which means what are they saving it for? They're saving to spend all of it next year in the build-up to what? The 2010 election cycle, right? So the other thing they're doing also is that for those who know how to access it, the Depository Trust Clearinghouse Corporation, which is at 55 Water Street here in New York City, that's where your birth certificate is, by the way. Anybody want to know where your birth certificate is? It's at the DTCC. And what do they do with it? They take your birth certificate, which has a bond QSIP number on the upper right-hand corner. They take that certificate, they sell it to the Commerce Department. The Commerce Department takes it to the DTC, and the DTC takes your birth certificate as a bond and basically sells it to a series of foreign countries. And these foreign banks stamp your birth certificate because you are bought and sold. That's your what do they call it? That's your pink slip, so to speak. So that certificate shows that they own you, that you're collateral for the bankruptcy of 1933 and for the debt, and that's then loaned around and around and around. What they're allowing people to is that now the DTC is saying to people that understand how to fill out the paperwork, they're about ready to give away millions and millions and millions of dollars, which is pretty cool if you know how to get in. You need somebody who is a Series 7 broker who has a participant account, is that you, to actually get you into the DTCC. And they have something called the DTC, which is a Depository Trust Company underneath that. But they're basically going to pay all your bills. And, they'll say, okay, you want $1 million a month or $12 million a month or whatever. They're ready to just empty the Treasury to basically choke you on your own money. It's going to be good in the short term. Whereas I gave every single one of you, could you afford a black card from the Treasury that's got a limit of $4,000 a day? Could you guys handle that probably? Because that's possible if you know how to do it. I know people that are doing it now. I've seen them. It's kind of like hunting unicorns, and we don't know how to get them, but they're out there somewhere. It's kind of a myth. So we're trying to actually arrange that so that we can start paying down debts and doing different things. The next thing they're going to do is that Obama's going to have a Kennedy-like moment in which he's going to stand up and talk about how the world is going to return to space. and he's going to talk about Mars, he's going to talk about the moon, he's going to talk about all these things. So he's going to have his Kennedy moment where he's going to say, by the end of this decade, in other words, 2020, we will put a man on Mars, we will have a presence on the moon. Are we really going to go? Probably not, but we're going to spend all this money. Also, he's not going to say America is going to return to space. He's going to say the world. You know why? Because a month ago, Lockheed Martin was looking at bankruptcy. And what Lockheed Martin did is they went to China. And the Chinese gave them billions and billions and billions of dollars and basically emptied our entire technological database into basically to the Chinese government. And the bottom line is that when you sell technology, you sell the ability to produce things, which is what real wealth is. It's not actually making it, it's the ability to make it. Therefore, if you look at the greening of America, this is another interesting thing you're going to see. You're going to see the U.S. military make a comeback inside the United States in a big way. What they're going to do is they're going to repeal posse comitatus, which is they've been working on for a long time. How many people know what posse comitatus is? Posse comitatus was a deal that was made by Harrison when Harrison was elected president. Harrison lost the popular vote but won the Electoral College, and he got Southern Democrats to actually vote for him because if there's a question of what's going on in the Electoral College, the House and the Senate have to vote on the president. And so what he said is, he said, look, I will withdraw all the Union troops from the South. This is somewhere around the 1880s or so. And he said, I will withdraw the Union troops from the South, and they passed what's called the Posse Comitatus Act. And the Posse Comitatus Act meant, oh my goodness, Posse Comitatus Act meant specifically that federal troops would be withdrawn from the sovereign states and that you could not use the U.S. military inside the sovereign states. The only state where there is an exception is Texas. You know why? Because Texas isn't a state. Texas is an independent foreign sovereign republic that is only a member of the Union by a treaty that they sign every 2 years. You guys know that? So when you live in Texas, you learn weird stuff like this. That's also why the flag of the Lone Star Republic never flies lower than the American flag. It always flies at the exact same height. And also explains why Texans have completely insufferable egos. So, because everything's big in Texas, son. I tell you, that's right. I got my hat right here. So he announces that we go back to space. They start spending trillions and trillions of dollars. They perform what everybody thinks is an economic miracle. The stock market, what I would say is that the stock market is going to go through one more major readjustment of about, we might see the market back down to about 6,500 or so, again, one last time. But, here's a prediction for you. You're going to see the market, at least by this time next year, you'll see the market up to somewhere around 16,000, 16,500. Maybe as high, and that's a conservative estimate, but you'll see the markets up somewhere maybe even as high as 19,000 to 20,000 or so in about a year and a half. Also, all my predictions on gold and silver have happened. Silver is up to what, $17 now, I think? It's on its way to 25. Gold is up to, went to 1,057, I think it is, and gold's going to be up to about, it's not going to go crazy, it's not going to go to 2,000, but it's going to be up to about 1,200 or so. But again, why? Because they're tanking the dollar, and this is the big thing. You're being distracted by healthcare, by moonshots, they will do everything they can do to distract you from the point that the U.S. dollar and the collapse of the dollar and the collapse of the U.S. economy is the ultimate prize here. Because once you get rid of the U.S. dollar, then it brings the United States down to the point where you can plug the United States into a tri-phase system. And again, you want the prophecies of all this? Go back and take a read of 1984. 1984 was written by George Orwell, also named Eric Blair, who was a Fabian socialist. And so was H.G. Wells, by the way. 1984, as Eric Blair once said, is not a warning, it's a blueprint. There's a reason why it was Hillary Clinton's favorite book. It's a blueprint for what they want to do with humanity. Their 1,000-year Reich with a jackboot stomping on a human face for 1,000 years. That's their blueprint of what they want to accomplish. Here's the good news. The good news is, and let's talk about New York because this lady asked a question. You still awake? You still with me? Here's the good news. What's interesting? I got a chance to take a question here in just a second. Here's the good news with what's going on with New York. First off, the thing about New Yorkers is you are immensely resilient. You are fabulously intelligent. You are very well informed. You're very well educated. And I'm not just blowing a bunch of sunshine up your kilt when I say this. I talk about politics. I talk about spirituality. I talk very quickly, and you people get it. In California, people are like, dude, take a pill, man. You're like totally like bagging my buzz, dude, Just become a spota like us, Smoke some dope and say, well, I was supposed to go to work today, but I didn't want to. So you guys get it. I understand because you're very well informed. Why? Because you're bombarded by media. You get to read on the subway. You get to see newspapers. You get to interact with people on a daily basis. You have fabulously well-dressed women, I might add, because, come on, in California, you go to the bank in your shorts and your flip-flops. I don't know where we became a nation of striders to where we became a nation of shufflers. You notice that? Those kids who, and they all shuffle now, and they scrape their feet on the floor. I mean, I'm in the bank going, pick up your goddamn feet. Goddamn. Walk like a human. Millions of years to stand upright. Look at you. It's like suddenly races of zombies. So, but here's the interesting thing about New York. The one thing that's going to get very expensive, I'll tell you what's going to get expensive and what's going to get cheap. You're going to have hyperinflation and hyperdeflation. What deflation is going to mean is that property values are going to plummet. Anything that's long-term, real estate, apartments, co-ops, cars, furniture, going to be dirt cheap. You're going to be able to pick it up for next to nothing. What's going to go up is going to be everything you consume on a daily basis. Alcohol, tobacco, foodstuffs, toilet paper, anything. I'm telling you, in a crisis, you want to have a lot of toilet paper. That's what I can say. Fill your apartment with toilet paper, and you could be the king of New York if you have toilet paper. Your other problem is electricity. What happens? There's a whole series of challenges. You guys, you get, almost 10 million people living on this 10 square mile island here where you're just this target for everything. The real challenge is going to be, look, and I will tell you your opinions on this. I did remote viewing stuff of New York where back in 95, 96, remember when I was teaching remote viewing classes here? Anybody take those classes? And in those classes way back in the day, I said, tell me what New York looks like in the year 2015 to 2025 in a sealed envelope, and people said they did not see the World Trade Center, so you guys predicted it. So the World Trade Centers were gone, and they said the biggest problem in the 2015 to 2025 time frame was flooding, was that water began to rise and rise and rise. Electricity was a big problem because as the waters rise, why do you have all your electrical plants that power buildings in the basement of these places? Why aren't they on the roof? Because the minute it floods, it's going to short out the electricity. And then if you don't have electricity, you realize you can't get your car out of the garages either because the doors are all, you don't have cars, but it's just electricity. It's just you can't get your car out to run anywhere. They're going to have to vertically evacuate you upwards so that you're all going to be hanging out on the tops of buildings. It's going to be very interesting to see what's going on. Mayor Bloomberg made a statement that said if there is not a major upgrade within the next 2 years of New York City, that New York City will become a ghetto within 20 years. And the biggest problem is that it was his statement, or is he the one that's making it the ghetto? I'm not sure. I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy from Mayor. Didn't he just have a term limit of 8 years and go, I don't feel like leaving? Is that what it was? Your own mayor just went, I'm going to change that because I don't feel like going anywhere. I'm going to run for president in 2012, so I got to keep this job. So, but in New York you have, and again, let me point this out. I'll talk to take a breath here. When's my workshop's at 3 o'clock? I think is it 3 o'clock? Which one should you go to if you have a choice? I don't know. You guys come to the workshops. We talk about a bunch of different things. I got a big brain, so I could. No, they're not the same. They're completely different. What I try to get out of the way on the Fridays and the Saturdays is that I try to get the political stuff, the economic stuff, how to set yourself up, how to dodge the bullet, so to speak, I get away. On Sunday, what I try to focus on, because it is Sunday, I try to focus on the more spiritual. I try to do the God Force meditation. I'll do some hands-on healing because I'm in a good mood and I feel good. So, you guys have some problems. You guys have seen me knock a few people out. It's really fun. How many people are here for the very old Jewish guy? Did you see that older guy? Herb or Norm or whatever his name was. It was like, oh, this is all crap. I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, well, come on up here, sir. And he comes up here and I said, so, tell me what's going on with you. And he goes, well, when I was 6 years old, and I just went smack, and I hit him in the head. And the guy went, oh, and down he went. And he's laying on the floor just twitching for about half an hour. And then he gets up and he goes, I feel great. I can't believe this. This is the best I've ever felt. I was like, there you go. And it's like, there was a reason when Jesus went to the cemetery and he rose Lazarus, he said, Lazarus, come forth. He was very specific, Lazarus, because if he just said, come forth, you would have a whole cemetery of old Jewish guys going, oh, Jesus, my back, oh, my aching, my hurt right here, my knee, my head. Fix me, Jesus. Jesus is like, oy vey, no. All right, so look. I got to wrap it up and get out of here. Here's what you most need to know. What you most need to know, and I try to say it once, and I try to say it in all my lectures, is that You know, the motto of the Egyptian civilization was as above, so below, as within, so without, which was written on the emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus. The motto of the Greeks was know thyself. The motto of the Romans was to thy own self be true. The motto of the great American empire is mo is better. If I just add mo as something, it'd be better. If I just add mo bitches, mo cars, mo stuff, mo money, it'd be better. And so, because that's the way I roll, my homies know. There is nothing worse than a dopey Irish white guy pretending to be black, by the way. There is nothing sadder than that. So what you most need to know, again, and I reiterate this, and I know you guys get sick of hearing it, but as Richard Nixon used to say, when you've said something 1,000 times and you're sick of saying something, that's when people hear it first. And that is all is one, life has purpose, God is love. That's the motto of the Mayan civilization. Thank you. The motto of the Mayan civilization is all is one means we are all connected. We are all part of God in eternity past. We are part of God in eternity future. We are just little fingers on the hands of God going out having experiences. Don't bore God. Don't bore your guardian angels. That life has purpose means no matter what's happened in your life and your existence, no matter how many low kicks, dirty tricks, or rotten licks you've had throughout your life and existence, it means that everything that's happened to you up to this point, number one, there is no karma anymore. The idea is that you can ask for forgiveness and redemption, and all those things are washed behind you. That was the key to Christianity. The creed of Christianity is love and forgiveness. And what did Christ say? He gave you two laws. He said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul. This is the first of the commandments. And number two, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Upon this, all the law shall be based. And I think that was one of the greatest things next to the greatest things next to the Buddhaic diatribes and all the things that he said. Because life having purpose means that everything you do, every way, has a purpose, has a function, has an ideal, and it means that you're at the exact right point in time and the exact right point in history to do all the things that you need to do. And the final aspect that God is love means that the prima mobile of the universe, that the first thought of the generator, operator, destroyer force that put all of this into motion was for the greatest and highest good of all the beings within that space. And if you want to increase your psychic powers, if you want to talk to animals, if you want to heal the sick, if you want to do all these things, one very simple thing: be nice, be polite, open your field of love. Take the energy in your head, put it in your heart, and expand your field of love and your respect and gratitude for living in the glorious universe that you live in, your respect and gratitude for all of you as you being generators, operators, destroyers in the center of the universe from your point of view. You're creating who and what I am by my standing up here. I'm creating who and what you are as we go back and forth. Therefore, it is the respect of gods amongst each other that are actually trading respect and love and gratitude for the grace and the love and the passion and the power that you guys put in your lives every day. Everything else is semantics. Everything else is trivial. Everything else may be prophecies. As long as you have that, that is what you most need to know. Thanks for coming. Workshops at 3 in the Murray Hill Dungeon, I think.